Hello and welcome to Access Sportsnet Lakers. I'm your host, Chris McGee. Joining me, it's our Laker insider, Mike Bresnahan, Laker reporter, Mike Trudell. Allie Clifton's joining us in a little bit. Everybody's back.
Yep.
Allie went home. Brez went on a nice little vacation.
The season's starting tomorrow, right?
Is it right? You've been everywhere.
No, I guess
Summer
not, yeah.
League, calling some soccer matches around the. Your twins are dominating Little League.
Not as much as your girls are dominating volleyball.
There's a lot of volleyball.
Yeah.
Domination.
I'll be in Mexico in a couple days if anybody needs me.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I'll come join you.
Brez, you don't have any more vacation.
No, you're right. I'm out of time. That's it.
No, it's good to
Passport
have you
got
guys here,
revoked,
though.
also.
You guys all rested and
Feel great.
feel great?
Ready to talk.
It's a little strange though, right? Because we've been, there hasn't been a Laker basketball game in a long time.
It really hasn't.
And yet there still isn't going to be for a while.
A couple months, right?
Yeah.
So
So
call
like,
these the dog days of summer, but it is still exciting because there's always something to talk about.
Well,
when
that's
it comes to Lakers. Let's get into it. What's next for Russell Westbrook and the Lakers is the biggest question of the offseason. And while Russ's future remains uncertain, Shams recently reported that the Jazz, Knicks, and Pacers have all expressed interest in acquiring the 9-time All-Star along with draft capital from the Lakers in any potential deal. Mike Trudell, I know you can't jump in a lot on these kind of things, but just wherever you can. Rumors are everywhere, Brez. I'll start with you. And it seems like every deal we hear about, the picks are involved, draft capital.
That's going to be the big kind of jump ball. Do they give up one pick? Do they give up two picks? Obviously, they can't even touch trading a pick till 2027 and then 2029 after that. Obviously, the Lakers want to preserve that capital. Magic Johnson said pretty much as soon as the season ended that he was hearing. Obviously, he's still got some contacts over there. The Lakers don't want to give away any more future first-round draft picks. Some people in the front office felt like it had already been too many given up in the last couple of years. So can they somehow make a trade without giving up that first rounder or two? I don't think so. That's probably why we're at a standstill right now.
Mike, when you see like the Gobert deal go down and now, KD deal that we're going to be getting into soon, all the rumors surrounding KD and Kyrie, sometimes it's tons of draft picks.
Yeah.
AD situation. Sometimes it's young talent. That's just how the league is. But when you have a good player that you are trading away, you want to get draft picks at least back. And that's just the truth.
Well, the league has changed also because it used to be more, and especially when you think about the Lakers, that you could always expect free agents to be thinking as at least one of those top options. Now, the recent thing has been that players are just going to lock in the max salary that they can.
Get the bag, Mike.
And then think about asking for a trade. And that complicates things in terms of first-round picks because, and that's not to say whether the Lakers give up picks in a trade, and it involves the one that you just talked about, depending on what the other team is, well, the impact could not necessarily come for a couple of years because then the star that they do want to bring in next, and who knows how long that could be, well, if those picks are gone then, that's the value of it. It's not just like, it's not worth getting a pick so you can compete this year, Geeter. It's just more complicated than that.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to go to you next, Mike Trudell, from the franchise's point of view, because I know a lot of fans talk to you. People always are living in the moment. Who cares about the draft picks? Well, you have to, right? Because you said there's a bigger picture sometimes down the road, right?
Well, that is the thing where the Lakers are always going to be a place where players want to come. So that's true. But for other teams to make a deal with the Lakers, there has to be an incentive that they can sell to their fans. And guess what happened when the Lakers got Anthony Davis? Well, they had to give up a lot of assets, not just in terms of picks, but all of the good young guys.
Swaps and players,
And so nobody's going to try to do the Lakers any favors in that sense for a trade. But, Geeter, that doesn't mean that they're not willing to give up picks if the player or players are good enough to give them a chance to win the title. And that's where it becomes complicated, and each one has to be evaluated independently.
That's something you've been saying, Brez, on the podcast for the last couple of weeks. It's not that they're not willing to part with picks. It just has to be the right situation.
Yeah, and if you look at these three teams, the Jazz, Knicks, and Pacers, the team that has been around for a while in these rumors is the Indiana Pacers. You kind of say, okay, what do they have left? They've already dealt Brogdon to the Celtics. A lot of pieces already coming and going from that franchise. I still like the Buddy Hield and Miles Turner. And why might Indiana do this? Because it saves them about $12 million in cap money over the next 2 years, if indeed they want to do that. Maybe even a little bit more, depending on who they throw into that trade to make it work for a player like Russell Westbrook. So that's a team that still makes the most sense to me, going with a clear youth movement. Miles Turner has only one more year left on his contract. Buddy Hield has 2. So that would be the deal I'd look at if I was the Lakers. But again, how many draft picks do they want to give up, and how many draft picks does Indiana want?
So we've been dealing with some unknowns here to start the show. I want to talk about the knowns, all right? Guys who are signed, the free agent signings. Is there one that sticks out to you? I want you each give me one.
Yeah, I still like the Damian Jones pickup the most. I was so impressed with how he finished the season the last few weeks up in Sacramento. Look, they were pretty slow, or pretty slim, I should say, on healthy centers at that point. So they had to kind of throw him in there, and he responded. He was great. The numbers there, a little low for the entire season, but the last couple weeks he was averaging about 18 points and 8 rebounds and almost a couple block shots a game. So he and Thomas Bryant, I assume we're going to have a little training camp battle. That'll be one fun thing to watch. He does not have the three-point range that a Thomas Bryant has, but still a young player, has some bounce. I think he might be the opening night guy. If
has
indeed
an engineering degree.
What's that?
Engineering degree.
Yeah, he's smart too. Yeah. I mean, he shows up with that T-shirt on the introduction day, Mike, for the new signees. I know you were like, what do you do with that shirt there? And he told us, went back and this guy's engineering degree.
It is real school too. Yeah. Got to go to class.
Who's the guy that for you, Mike? I don't know. I'm sure you like all the signings, but the one that just kind of says, you know what? I like that fit. Here's why.
Well, no, so I like Jones also, and I think you're right, Perez. I think there's going to be a little bit of a battle there. Maybe Thomas Bryant, if fully healthy, gives you a little bit better spacing to start with LeBron and AD, but both of them will play, and they're both really good values, especially for the vet mins. But I look at Juan Toscano-Anderson, and not necessarily just because of the player that he is, but the mentality that he brings in. He is a warrior. He's a guy that's always playing hard. Last season, there just weren't enough guys on the roster that were the do little things, dirty work type players.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can expect LeBron James and Anthony Davis to have to do that every night like they did last season. So you need dogs out there. You need guys that are going to just have that certain baseline level of energy. And the shooting isn't great for Toscano-Anderson, but he fills the big need that they have on the wing. He can scale down in terms of passing, getting into the paint, kicking out a little bit. And I just think that mindset that he's going to bring is going to be really important.
Also brings that mindset from the Warriors. Not only a Warrior on the court, but he wore that uniform and won a title. So I always like that when a guy can come into the locker room and kind of knows what it takes and what to expect.
For sure.
So the biggest chip that is yet to fall is Kevin Durant in every single day. But first I want to get into this. I want to show you guys the rest of the free agent signings very quick. Because I kind of skipped up there. Yeah, because we do have Lonnie Walker. We got Troy Brown. Okay, you guys mentioned Thomas Bryant. That's the list right there. Some youth coming into the Laker organization, looking much different than it did last year at this time, if you guys remember.
I almost said Troy Brown Jr. I am intrigued with Brown. So he's a former lottery pick.
Yeah.
He is only 22. He's about to turn 23.
Yeah.
He's a 3-and-D guy, sort of. That's what Chicago wanted him to be last year. But in Washington, he has a little bit of bounce off the dribble. He can make some plays once he get into the paint. So I'm intrigued by him. Good size. He shot the ball well last season. So keep your eye out there. I'm going to be watching closely in training camp.
All right, now we get to the biggest chip that is yet to fall. That is Kevin Durant. Now, there are some that think he will stay in Brooklyn. Every single day it's something new in terms of the rumors. Now, Boston Celtics are involved in those talks. The Nets are asking for a lot, but they should. Like Mike said, you sign a big deal and then you demand to be traded. That puts that franchise in a really tough situation. They're not just going to give you away without getting something big time in return, Brez. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, a couple things I don't love about this. He might be going to the Boston Celtics. I don't really love that because that makes them a lot stronger.
Nets want Marcus Smart, as they should.
Yeah, I mean, they got to get some, and maybe even Jaylen Brown as well.
Well, yeah, for sure you're getting Brown.
You got to get some good young talent and a lot of draft picks back. I also don't like what you just kind of said. He signed this big deal. Mike, they gave him all the money he wanted, and now he wants to leave. I don't love that you're trying to force your way out with a brand new 4-year deal about to start a couple months from now. So, where's he going to end up? The NBA still is kind of on pause, in particular, Kyrie Irving. What did the Nets do with him?
Yeah.
You have to wait and see what happens with KD. Here we are, a few days from August, nothing yet.
Where are you, Mike, on that when people say, is he going to get moved or not? If you had to say before training camp, will KD be going to Brooklyn or will he be somewhere else? You don't have to tell me where, but just what you think. If you had to bet. Your hard-earned money that you don't want to bet.
No, as of today, I still think that there probably will be a deal somewhere. Just because, otherwise, why was there such an immediate push in coming from Durant's side to do one? The destinations, though, are tricky, and you can follow what Vegas has, right, for the favorites. And, of course, it started out really heavy for the Suns. Well, that went away once Ayton was matched after Indiana made the offer sheet. So, I don't know. Brez, I hear part of what you're saying, but this is just welcome to the new NBA, right? This is what things are like now. And until things change, maybe as soon as the next CBA negotiations, because I think this does make it difficult for some teams. With that said, if they are going to trade him, they're going to get a massive haul. So, like, the fact for Brooklyn, they got KD to come there for free. Like he came as a free agent. And so in terms of the overall asset, if he goes, it's going to be for a star, then maybe a secondary player, then a bunch of picks, and they'll be fine. So I don't feel that kind of sympathy for Brooklyn. I think that like KD came to you for free. Now you get to leverage that either by keeping him or by getting a haul for him.
Well, that's what was kind of funny when you talk to people in Brooklyn. They're like, well, you want to go play with Booker and CP3. I don't think you understand. Booker's coming here if you're going there because we're not trading you there unless we're getting that back. So that's the hard part for these franchises. Listen, Kyrie's the other piece, correct? And Shams said Kyrie intends to play out his final season with the Nets. That would make him an unrestricted free agent next year. Doesn't mean the Nets won't move him, Brez. Do you still think he's in play?
I do, but in a very slow speed chase kind of way. I mean, I'm thinking maybe up till training camp, maybe even the trade deadline next year. Because, Brooklyn, they don't want to lose him for nothing next July. And right now, if he plays out his 1 year like Shams said he would, they will lose him for nothing if he does not re-sign. And it sure seems like he has also got 1 foot out the door, kind of like KD. Bottom line, though, if you're the Lakers, and obviously a lot of questions still about him and them, it's tempting to say, why should we give up draft picks now to get this guy when he can be just a free agent signing a year from now? Well, the answer is LeBron is under contract right now for 1 more year. You want to maximize that year and as many more beyond that if he does indeed re-sign with the Lakers. So you're tempted to make this move now, even if you have to throw in the draft picks.
I guess the way that I'm looking at this whole thing from the Lakers standpoint is that the roster at the end of the season, to me, likely to be different from what the one is at the start of training camp. And it doesn't mean, like Brett said, whether it's in training camp or whether it's the trade deadline, the Russ and AD and LeBron combo did not work well last year. Now, we know that they did not have a lot of games. There was a very small sample size. But if Russ does start the season with the Lakers, then they can evaluate what they see in front of them. Regardless of whether that happens or not, other teams are going to be different come the trade deadline. And it's different from last season because Russ still had a year left on his deal. And every day that goes by now, not just Russ, but every player's contract or just every player becomes a little bit more tradable if things aren't working. So I just think it's difficult for Darvin Ham to come into a situation like that, but they have to figure out the best way to still have a chance to compete in the playoffs next season. And you may not know all of the pieces that are on the chessboard until you get closer to the deadline.
You guys know who's joining us next?
Who's that?
The GOAT of Ohio basketball. Allie is back from her trip. She is back to the Lakers. Here's a look at their current roster. You know all the names: AD, LeBron, Russ, Lonnie Walker, the new additions. But one guy that is looking forward to bouncing back in a big way is Kendrick Nunn. I recently spoke with him about his road to recovery after missing all of last season with a knee injury. How does your body feel physically? Where are you at?
I feel great. I feel 100%, to be honest. Back to where I'm normally playing at a high level.
I know for anybody who's ever played sports, like being injured and stuff is tough. When's the last time you felt this good?
It's been a while. It's been a while since I felt this good. Maybe since I was playing back in this last season. The last season I was playing.
I know the focus is looking ahead and the road and the journey and getting into training camp and beyond. But I do want to ask you just what last year was like for you.
Last year was a learning process for me, to be honest. I learned a lot sitting on the sideline just watching. The game slowed down a lot for me. I got to see things from a different perspective, so definitely took a step just with my ability to learn the game.
You know, it's interesting. Coaching my own kids, young girls, I've often said that, hey, when you have to miss a tournament, you have to miss a game because of an injury, you can learn a lot about yourself and the game. Did you find that?
Yeah, I definitely found that. Wasn't expecting to sit out that long, but I took advantage of it just to sit back and watch from a different perspective.
What are your goals for training camp?
My goals for training camp is to compete at a high level, bring my strengths to the game, bring my strengths to the team, be a leader, and just do what I can do.
Had any conversations with Darvin?
Yeah, I talked to him a bunch while he was here.
Yeah, he seems great. I mean, he's been in the studio, and we knew him back our first year at the network. He was an assistant on that staff, and it's been a crazy journey for him, too, to get to this point.
Yeah, I've talked with Darvin a lot. Me and him ran into each other a bunch of times with me working out and him coming in before or the summer league. I also got to work out with him a little bit, so that was great.
For those Laker fans that obviously, remember when, Miami and the Lakers met in the bubble for the finals, what do you want to show them what kind of player you are? Like, what should they expect?
They should expect consistency. It's my number one thing. Coming in, night out, and being consistent on both ends of the floor.
Trud, I want to start with you. Kendrick Nunn seems like kind of the forgotten man a year ago. He's on the road back. He's motivated. How important is he to this team?
I think that unfortunately this does happen when somebody misses a season, and especially if they haven't been with that team the year prior. It is forgotten. It is forgotten, and it's forgotten that he's a pretty good player. And he was playing in the finals against the Lakers and giving them some problems at times coming off the bench. So Nunn is a better defender, I think, than some people realize. He's not going to lock up the other team's point guard necessarily, but he's a physical defender. He gets through screens pretty well. And offensively, he's a guy that can score at 3 levels. So he can get to the mid-range. He's got a floater. He's got little setback jumpers. He can shoot the 3. He can get all the way to the rim and finish there. So I do think that he's a very interesting piece. And the important thing, and I'm glad you got a chance to talk to him, Geeter, is that he's feeling good. Like, we don't really get a chance to go over that even at the end of the season. So that to me is very encouraging. He's on the court. Is he playing some pickup? Or did he?
Not yet.
Okay, not yet. So he's
not yet.
So he's not yet to that phase.
The hope is, though, training camp, he's ready.
Okay.
Is what I think everyone's shooting for.
Okay, so that's the big thing, right? So can he get to that point where he can hit training camp or even a preseason game running, Brez, to the point where you can actually get him on the floor? Because they missed him last year.
No doubt. I mean, this is a guy, let's not forget, it's almost like they re-signed another free agent in Kendrick Nunn, because we don't know what he's going to be like with the Lakers. Like we did in Miami, a little bit of everything. A decent defender. They're really impressed by his defense at training camp last season, by the way. And, of course, can hit some threes. Also a nice little floater in the lane when he was with the Heat.
Perez, it's interesting when you look at, what he did in Miami. He played for a couple years, but, he was in that final against the Lakers. But he averaged 14, 15 a game.
Yeah.
So, he's capable.
Yeah, I mean, if Pat Riley...
For a team that went to the finals.
Yeah, if Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra production is giving you that much time, you're doing a good thing in that very defensive-minded, very smart offensive system as well. He did some good things for that team. Keep in mind, still a young player. He'll be 27 when the season starts, so it's not like they're getting a 32-year-old coming in.
You know who else is looking forward to another bounce-back season? Who needs one? He's a superstar in this league. Anthony Davis. AD, right? Like, without a doubt, he is a game changer when he's healthy physically, because I think that helps him also mentally and with confidence. When you're injured that much, I think that part of your game, that self-confidence can go and can weigh because you're worried about getting hurt. We've seen the work, right? I mean, you're getting little snapshots of it, the sand dunes, the early morning workouts with Lethal Shooter. Trudell, what's your thoughts on just looking ahead to what you expect from AD?
It's a tough question because coming off of the bubble, right? We were already kind of thinking, all right, this trajectory continues
MVP
for AD as he continues towards this clearly a dominant two-way force. The only other guy that can do all of the things that he can do is Giannis. And Giannis has been able to stay healthy, he's been able to stay on the floor, and that has just not been the case for AD. Now, the difficulty for AD is that that whole bubble thing screwed him up more than anybody else. LeBron, I think, can almost deal with anything, and the shortened off season, he kind of just took that in stride, even though it did lead to some injuries for LeBron as well. And AD, I thought, was going to catch up last year. Instead, what he did was bulk up some, because I think he thought he was going to play some more center. I'm very curious how he comes into camp in terms of his weight. Does he take some pounds off, maybe, and go back to the body type that we've seen him have so much success with? And then, you have Bryant in, you have Jones in to play some more center minutes. Maybe he's off the ball more. I'm curious if that's something that could help him. But regardless, of course, there's nothing more important than he and LeBron being on the court.
Yeah, Mike, great points. I would add to that. I remember last year during media day, we're all like, "Ooh, AD looks good." He's put on the weight. His shoulders were pretty big. This year, that doesn't matter. I want to see if he can stay on the court. It's no longer, is he going to pass the eye test? It is he going to pass the playing more than 40, 42 games a season test? If this team's going to be a top 4 or 5 team in the West, he has to play 70 games or more. He just has to. And it can't happen because 2 years ago, he missed only 9 games in that bubble year. What happened? They won the whole thing. So it's really vital for him to have the type of year that he had 2 years ago, stayed on the court, and they win the championship. It's that easy.
Guys?
Yep.
Chris?
She answered 592 questions on a 6-hour flight home for all the fans on Instagram.
AMA.
She is Hallie Clifton.
We're going to leave that.
I was so mad when I woke up. I was like, I have so many questions, but you're done.